put them in the chat, please. Thank you, Maura. Okay, we've got tons to cover today, so we're going to get right in. All right, great. Okay, here are the things we're going to cover today. I'm not going to read it all to you, but we're going to hopefully answer any questions you might have about TAG for the upcoming year. So we're going to start with who's eligible for TAG funding. Too many screens open. Okay, so if you have any district that has one or more schools in the following three categories, just needs to be one, and you will be eligible for TAG. If you have a school that has a federal designation, and that means TSI, ATSI, or CSI, that's a lot of letters. If you want to just boil it down real simply, what it means, targeted support and intervention and additional targeted support and intervention, that means you have a low performing student group. And CSI is comprehensive support and intervention. That means your school is in the bottom 5% of all Title I schools. If you have that federal designation for one school or more, then you're eligible for TAG. Our state has more stringent requirements than the federal government. We look at the lowest 10% of schools. And so if you're in the bottom 10 percentiles, then you're TAG eligible. And then finally, the third one, if you have a school that's identified as underperforming, they're almost always captured in one of those first two bullets. But if they're not, then you would be TAG eligible. So if you have one school or more, then you're TAG eligible. Now, all schools were using the 2024 accountability data. So what came out last fall, that's what's determining who's eligible for TAG for this year. So when we get the new data in the fall of 2025, so in a few months, we're going to have some schools come off and some schools get added. That's actually not going to impact the TAG allocation for this coming year. We'll get to that more in a second. We're really just looking at who's eligible from the 2024 data. Okay, and at the bottom, the schools that are not eligible, so schools that are in the Office of Strategic Transformation, that would be your schools in Holyoke, Southbridge, Lawrence, Springfield Empowerment Zone. Charter schools aren't eligible, virtual schools aren't eligible. They have other funding streams that they get, so that's why you're not going to see them here. Okay. Next, districts accepting TAG funds. So just want to make sure that it's working. Okay, so if you're accepting TAG funds, I'm just going to start with what's on the bottom. This is all the same as last year. Almost everything is the same, and that's by design. If you're accepting TAG funds, then you are agreeing you're going to engage with somebody from our center, the Center for School and District Partnership. So for a lot of you, that's going to be the SSOS regional team, who you've probably been working with for years. For those that are a little bit newer in the last couple of years to TAG, then you're going to work with someone else from the CSDP team. But either way, you're going to be engaging with somebody from our office working with you on this grant. The second one, you're going to provide an updated instructional priority that your district is working on. For SSOS district, that means you're going to go through the district instructional prioritization process. We'll talk about that more in detail in a minute. You're going to be submitting that each year. Again, you've done this in years past. And those that aren't in SSOS, you're still doing some sort of plan where you're identifying what's the priority you're focusing on. You're going to be doing that as well when you're receiving TAG. And then the third part, you're going to take part in CSDP sponsored progress monitoring. Probably, if you were part of it in this past year, you know what this is all about. We're going to have progress monitoring next year as well. All right, next slide, funding sources. It's working great. This number you will probably notice is a lot lower than last year. TAG funding was decreased by a lot, by over $1 million, which is more than 20%. The way that TAG is spread out, we have some federal funding, which is why we got the decrease, and some state funding. It's roughly $3 million for Title I and roughly $500,000 from the state that is supporting each of the allocations. And just like last year, you have to expend all the funds by June 30th, 2026. So for those of you that are managing the grant this year, that means you have just over a month to make sure that you have all the funds spent. All right. So I do like to each year go, what's the same as last year and what's different? So what's the same as last year? It's still the same focus. TAG is intended to be a district level grant that helps districts with their lowest performing schools to have some sort of district system in place to support them. That's remaining the same. The second bullet, the same alignment with TAG funding to a district priority. This, if you want to boil TAG down real simply, it's what is your district's instructional priority? And then TAG can help you support with that. It needs to be aligned. That's what we're looking for when you submit. And the third one, the application looks almost identical. And again, that's by design. Some folks in districts are doing this year in and year out, and the intent is to make your life a little easier by not making a whole bunch of changes each year. So you're going to find if you did this last year, it looks almost identical. All right, and what is different from last year? The process is months earlier. This is really happy about this. We used to, during the pandemic, be able to offer you money that you could spend in the summer. Now that's not an option for us anymore. So what we decided to do instead was roll the grant out earlier so you could have it for the summer preceding the school year. And 2 years ago, we bumped it up 6 weeks earlier. And then when I looked at the PowerPoint, this webinar that we did last year, we did it mid-July. And now we're doing it in late May. So we bumped it up again another 6 weeks. So now you'll actually have the money if you want to spend it in the summer. We are rolling out the grant early enough that you can now spend it in the summer. So this process is much earlier than last year. I mentioned before allocations were reduced by 20%. This is sadly something that's across the board at DESE. We have a lot of federal funds at this agency that supports grants, and almost all grants have been reduced. Some, if it makes me feel a little better, some got cut by a lot more than this. So ours did get a big cut, but maybe not as big as some others. The other big difference is there not going to be increases in allocations after data is released in September. In previous years, like last year, if a district had a handful of additional schools that became TAG eligible, we might be able to offer them additional money. Not able to do that this year. Our grant was cut actually by a little more than 20%. And the way that we tried to make the money all work was one of the ways we had to cut was to not give increases in the middle of the year. All right, next slide, TAG allocation update. So yeah, just carrying on what I was saying just a moment ago. So many DESE grants are subject to reductions this year, TAG being one of them. When 2025 accountability figures are released in the fall, we will add the number of eligible schools to your district total. That's not actually going to impact your allocation for the upcoming year. So if you have schools added or subtracted when we get the figures in the fall, that is going to be in the 26-27. So not the upcoming school year, but the one after that. That's where we're going to capture the new schools that are being added or subtracted. So last bullet here, the schools that are no longer eligible. So let's say in September, in a few months from now, we see that you have schools that were eligible last year, but not this year. We're not deducting any TAG allocation from you. So a few weeks ago, I sent out emails to every single one of you, individual emails saying, this is your allocation for the year. That's going to be your allocation for the year. It will not go up or down depending on what the fall accountability data shows. Your TAG allocation is set for the year. What you were told you're getting, you'll have that for the whole year, no matter what. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. Are there any questions in the chat? All right, so far so good. Okay, for those that are new, you might be wondering, all right, so what exactly can we use TAG for? So we came up with an example that can help illuminate what you can use TAG for. So let's say your district decides the instructional priority we're going to work on this year is strengthening Tier 1 math instruction. That's what you decided to work on. So the reason why I can't make you a list of here's what's allowable in TAG and here's what's not is because it's dependent on whatever your district's instructional priority is. So I actually can't tell you what's allowable or not until you would tell us this is what our instructional priority is. So let's say, for example, you say we're focusing on Tier 1 math instruction. Okay, if that's what you're focusing on, now we can give you a list of what's allowable and what's not in TAG. So here's some examples of what you could use TAG for. Could be used for stipends or substitutes. So maybe you would want to send some teachers to a summer PD session. You can pay them a stipend to attend that PD session. We've had districts in the past that do something in-house where they might have a veteran teacher who will open up their classroom to other teachers, and those newer teachers can come observe them. You can use it to pay for substitute coverage so that the teachers can go observe them. You can use it to hire contractors, PD providers to come in and provide services to your school. You could use it to pay people to go to, say, a conference where they're going to talk about math instruction. And then there could be, materials or technology or supplies that need to be purchased to help with this tier 1 instruction. You can use TAG for that as well. So these are just some examples of what you could use TAG funding for if, say, you were doing math instruction. Oh, I didn't change the slide. Sorry, I was talking. I've got 2 different PowerPoint slides going. All right. The next one is going to be TAG fund use alignment. I put this in bold because this is pretty much going to answer almost any question I would get on whether funding is allowable or not. It needs to be aligned with whatever the instructional priority your district identifies. It really is that simple. So if you just ask yourself, all right, is this expense that I'd like to use TAG funds for, does it align with the instructional priority? Then it's almost guaranteed that it will be allowable. I actually can't come up with an instance in my head where you would have some reasonable expense that is aligned that somehow is not allowable. So just make sure that it is aligned with whatever district instructional priority you have. Okay, and these fund use recommendations, you can click on these links if you want to. I'll send out this PowerPoint slide in a little bit. You can see how it aligns with other agency priorities. And just, we want you to note that once you've identified your instructional priority, there actually is a lot of flexibility in how you expend TAG funds. I just rolled off 4 examples on the previous slide. When you have that instructional priority, there is a bunch of wiggle room. As long as it's aligned with that priority, you have a lot of flexibility in how TAG is going to be spent. All right, next slide. When's the application due? September 30th, 2025. Some of you might be saying, all right, that's like 4 months from now. Why are we having a webinar about something that's not due for 4 months? This is our attempt to support districts who are in 2 different camps. We have some districts that say we want to spend the money in the summer. So that's why we're rolling this grant out early, so that if you want the money in the summer, you can apply for it and have it in the summer. And then we have some that are saying, we're not going to spend it till late fall anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So that's why we're given a long runway. If last year's a guide, about half of you spent or wanted the money for the summer, so applied really early. And then I'd say the other half applied in September for the funds then. So this way, if you don't need the money that early, you don't need to do this over the summer if you don't want to. But we do have folks that do want the money sooner. So that's why we have this long window. Just ask yourself, when do we need the money? So we can give you the money as soon as you send us an approvable application. So if you need the money, say July 15th, make sure you get your application in before that. If you're really not spending it till the fall or the spring, then you can submit it closer to the September 30th due date. Whenever you submit an approvable application, you're approved. So use that in the back of your head for when to apply. Okay, the next couple slides are screenshots, and you're going to see that this looks just like last year. So one of the things in GEMS that we ask is to please put the name and contact info. This is really important. I use this throughout the year. So I'll send you messages like, you have this much remaining in your grant. Or a couple of weeks ago, I sent you, this is your allocation for the upcoming year, and here's what you can expect. This is how I communicate with you. So please make sure you put multiple names, because sometimes people retire, people leave, people change jobs. And if you just have one person, the message is not getting to who it needs to be. If you want to put 5 names in contact, great. The more, the better. But please put at least 2, because this is how I'm going to communicate with you throughout the year. All right. Then next, you're going to see the budget. If you do GEMS, this is a pretty standard budget. It looks the same as it did last year. Then you're going to see, this is the actual narrative piece. And just like last year, it's a table. It's not much. It's a 2-page document. The first half is instructions. So it's really just a 1 page that you need to write in. And it's a table, and it's these 5 columns, the same 5 columns as it was last year. And so you're going to tell us what's the activity that you're doing. How does it connect with the district priority? That's the second column. Then you're going to, a brief explanation. And you'll notice that this is in bold, 1 paragraph. That's all we're looking for. We're not looking for a novel here. You don't need to go crazy writing. Just a paragraph or less is fine. Just briefly explain what the activity is that you're doing. Tell us how much it costs and which schools it's going to. Same as last year. hopefully this is making your life easier. I'm going to pause. Any questions?
No.
Great. All right, we're going to keep going. All right, moving on. Once you submit, then a DESE team is going to review. We're going to review all the submissions for, first and foremost, does it align with the instructional priority that your district selected? I'm saying that over and over because that's the crux of the grant here. Are the expenses aligning with your instructional priority? Yes, then really good chance it's going to be approved. We're going to look at technical requirements like, did you apply for too much indirect costs? Are you doing the right budget details? Did you put it in the right PD? That's what we'll look for, those kind of technical details. And then finally, are the expenses reasonable and allowable? So this is just kind of a reasonableness test that we would do. So maybe like you need new books for, the curriculum that you have for that tier 1 math instruction. That could be allowable, but if you say we're going to spend our entire $40,000 allocation on books, that's not so reasonable. So we'll be looking for things like that. Okay, and then this is the same for all grants. So this won't be a surprise for those of you that are familiar with GEMS. You're actually submitting this twice. You submit the application to us, then we review it and we tell you, we might go back and forth and say, oh, you need to change this, or everything looks good. Then it actually goes back to you. So it's not approved yet, even though we'll tell you it's approved. You actually have to have the superintendent send it back to us. And again, this is standard stuff across all grants here at DESE. The reason why we do it this way is because you don't want the superintendent to have to review changes all along the way. So you just send the superintendent the grant once it's done. That's why they approve in that stage. And then once they send it back, then your part's done. We'll approve it on our end, and the fiscal folks do it, and then it's taken from there. But just note that you have to submit twice. All right, and then this frequently asked questions. I used a lot of these same questions last year when I did this, and then got these same questions over and over. So it confirmed that these are actually frequently asked questions. You'll see when you get into GEMS that there is a fund code 222 and a fund code 325 for the same tag application. What does that mean to you? It doesn't mean anything. I mentioned earlier that we have state funding and federal funding that are supporting tag. All it does is tell the people here at DESE which account to pull your grant from. For your purposes, same due date, same spending requirements, everything's the same. So don't think anything differently. If you were 325 last year and 222 this year, it doesn't matter. It's still the same grant. Okay, next one. All right, if the 2025 data shows that we're going to have fewer tag eligible schools, will our allocation be reduced? I got almost, 90% of tag questions came after the accountability data came out last September. So if you have fewer tag eligible schools in the new data, your allocation is not changing for this year. We'll adjust it for the 26-27 school year, so 2 years from now, but we're not changing any allocation. The allocation you've been given, that's your allocation for the whole year. Even if you have 5 schools on the 2024 data and all 5 of them come off the list because they're doing dramatic improvement, you still get to keep your money for the whole year. All right, and the same thing if it was the other way. What if we have more tag eligible schools? And we had a few last year that fell in this category. Will our allocation be increased? In the past, maybe. We actually did. We increased 5 last year. We're not doing any this year. As I said, we had a big cut in tag, and this was one way. We're not doing the increases so that we didn't have to cut all your allocations by 25%, which is what we would have done. We did it by 20, and we're just not going to increase anybody this year. So again, your allocation stays the same no matter what the 2025 accountability data says. Okay, and then this one comes up again and again. That's why we spent so much time talking about it today. Since we can't extend the grant into the summer like we did for 4 years after the pandemic, how are we supposed to use tag for summer spending? Yes, that's a frustration, and we feel you on that. That's why we are changing the way we've done this, and we're rolling it out. You'll notice we're having this conversation in May. You're going to have all of June to apply, and you can have your money July 1. So if you need the money this summer, just get us an application as quickly as you can. You can submit as soon as GEMS is live. More on that in a moment. submit it early if you need the money early. So you can use it in the summer. It's just now going to be the summer before the school year instead of the summer after the school year, like it was during the pandemic. So yes, you can use it in the summer, just different summer now. Okay, next steps for districts. When I'm on the other end of these webinars and I'm listening to all this information, this sit and get information, this is not how I like to teach. When I'm on your end, I'm like, okay, fine, that's a lot of information. What do I need to do exactly? What should I do next? First thing that I would do if I were in your position is I would consult with your regional SSOS team or your CSDP liaison. The people you've been working with all school year on this, reach out to them. They're a tremendous resource. A lot of them have done TAG for years. So talk to them, tell them what your ideas are or what your instructional priority is for this year. Have that conversation. That's a great use of your time between now and the end of June. And then as you develop your application, the TAG application, make sure it aligns to whatever your instructional priority is. That is the easiest way that I can tell you. We will send it back and ask for revisions if you pick, tier 1 math instruction and everything you're talking about is, helping in graduation rates at your high school. Like those are different priorities. So make sure that they're aligned. And then submit the application in GEMS. So right now I'm testing it and I'm hoping it'll be rolled out soon and you can apply. July 1st will be the soonest that you can have the money. So you can submit, say, June 15th, you would still get the money July 1st. So apply as soon as you can, as soon as you need the money, and I will notify you as soon as it's ready. I'm going to use last year's contact list. I will notify you if as soon as you can apply in GEMS, and I'm hoping it will be within a week or so. I mean, well ahead of July when you would need to submit. Okay, finally, if you have questions about TAG, substantive related questions, I would reach out to whoever you're working with that DESE is assigned to your district. Use them. They're a tremendous resource. You can obviously reach out to me too if you have any questions. Any technical questions about the grant forms, ask me. I helped write them, so I'm quite familiar with them. Ask me, I'm happy to help you. And then progress monitoring, which will be rolled out again, starting this fall. Erica Champagne, my supervisor, she heads that project and can answer any possible question you would have about progress monitoring. Finally, the link to the RFP, I submitted a few weeks ago. I check every day just to see if it's posted. It wasn't posted as of this afternoon, but it should be any moment now. And they use the same URL each time they just update the year. So I can tell you what the URL will be. It's not going to take you to a link right now. But as soon as that's posted, I will let you know. That'll have the application in it. If you really want to get started, just use last year's application and then you can copy and paste later because they look almost identical. But that's where the RFP will be. That's the link. And so this is going on our website. And so you'll be able to click on it then. In the meantime, you have your allocations already. I sent them to you a few weeks ago. You can reach out to me if you didn't get that email. The narrative is going to look almost identical. So if you want to start now, you have what you need to start now. Don't feel like you have to wait for the RFP, which, could happen in the next 2 weeks-ish if it's on the slower end. But don't feel like you have to wait for that because you have what you need to get started. All right, that was 26 minutes nonstop talking. Now I'm going to pause. We're going to stop the recording. Thank you, Moira. If you have questions